Good morning, everyone. It is a real pleasure to be here. I think we're on the verge of something pretty exciting in K-12 education. When we think about the K-12 sector, it's, I think, a really exciting time as we look at what education could be and will be in the years ahead. Usually when I get a chance to give talks like this, I show a series of provocative videos, and I try to create a sense of urgency in the crowd about a system that we need to have now. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different than that. I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to tell a story of what I think this personalized learning or 21st century learning or whatever that term is that you use to describe the world that we think we need to have is. And this is not going to be a story about what could be or what should be or what would be if we just had enough money, but actually a story about something that we've done. And this is so not about what we could do or would do, but something that we did do. The Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games were an amazing experience for our city, our province, and our country. Many of us involved in education worried the games would come through our city and would be an opportunity lost, that the games would flow through and this chance to engage these kids in this worldwide experience was going to be somehow just not fulfilled. So along with a couple of my colleagues, Gary Kern and Audrey Hobbs-Johnson, and with the support of the organizing committee of the Vancouver 2010 Winter Games, in particular Christina Adams, we created something called Students Live. And Students Live at its core was a student reporter program, the opportunity for 25 students to report on the games. In actuality, it was way more than that. It was an absolutely transformational experience for all of us who were involved. And here's a little video clip from CBC that gives you a little more background on the program.
Now, BC schools hoping to turn the Olympics into an educational opportunity have a little bit of help in the form of student reporters. That's right, these are Olympic reports done by students, about 24 high school journalists who have full access to the games. Teresa Lalonde is our online and interactive reporter.
This story meeting checking in with teachers about interviews and focus.
Tell me where you're going to 12. Cauldron. And Cauldron.
No problem. These teens are motivated.
Interviewing Chinese people, seeing what their views on culture is.
Everyone has a plan and a deadline. The 24 students audition by submitting videos to their schools. They report in English and French. They're not just interviewing other young spectators, they're going to press conferences and events. VANOC supports them, so does the BC Ministry of Education.
And so it's a great opportunity for them and for the hundreds and thousands of students who are in school right now in our province and elsewhere who want to hear from a student's perspective about the games.
A big story, the chain-linked cauldron, and what people think of the changes.
Maybe some other sort of barrier, I don't know.
What would you guys suggest, like plexiglass?
I don't know, you probably get some kids snot on there or something like that.
Everyone gets a chance to ask questions and record answers. Subjects are easy to find.
You won't believe the access these students are getting. They're meeting more people than I am.
I actually got to speak with Maëlle Ricker. I thought that we were going to have troubles trying to get interviews with people, but everybody wants to talk and everyone wants to share their story.
The Cub reporters have quite the following. Schools across BC are using the Student Live site in their classrooms. Hundreds of teens are following them on Facebook and Twitter. And guess what? They're learning with every tweet and status update. Teresa Lalonde, CBC News, Vancouver.
So that's great. You know, the students, they're working side by side with international journalists. They're getting to go to games on an almost daily basis. You know, wonderful experience for those during the games and during the Olympics and the Paralympics. But it was way more than that. The lessons that they learned transcended the one moment in time or just the games. So we started with an application process. And this doesn't come to as any surprise for all of us who are involved in the K-12 system. When you let kids have some ownership and buy into a process, they're going to be way more engaged. And that's absolutely what we saw. We asked these students to write a blog post or somehow use Web 2.0 tools to explain why they would be the right kind of person to be reporting on the games. And here's one of those applications that we received.
And I'm here in Whistler, TEDxUBC right now, the home of the 2010 Olympics, to tell you why I should be one of the students' live reporters on the Olympic and Paralympic Games. I am 16 years old, currently in grade 11 at Riverside Secondary School. I'm a journalist for a magazine called You Think, which is distributed in high schools all over Western Canada. And I'm also a junior journalist for Free the Children, which works together with the Toronto Star. I am a 4-time district gold medalist for public speaking. I'm part of a webcast team called Sharing the Dream that interviews Olympic and Paralympic athletes on the spirit of the game. My dream is to become a journalist and share the stories of people around the world. As you can tell, this amazing opportunity would mean so much to me. Thank you for your consideration. See ya!
I just wanna be okay, be okay, be okay. I just wanna be okay today.
What we did see, though, in the close to the 80 students who applied, was that although we often talk about how well-versed kids are in technology, like they're almost born with a laptop or a BlackBerry in their hand, this was really new. And for a competition that actually catered to those with the greatest technology skills in our system, the idea of creating content for a public audience, for most of them, was brand new. And what we saw during that application procedure, and what we saw actually during the entire experience of the students live, was something really core. Good writing still matters. And we sometimes think now, because of the technology and because of our text messaging generation, that's somehow been lost. But what we saw was that good writing and the ability to communicate was more important than ever. It's never been part of something, I've never been part of something where it was actually so evident how important good writing is. Those students who were able to build audience, to create following, were our best writers. And the students who were really good with technology but were poor with communication floundered throughout the entire process. On our first meeting with the students, what we began to do was engage them in social media and talk about, well, how are we going to use social media to grow an audience? And so we gathered around with all our students and go, so what do you have? What we found was every student had Facebook. And that we kind of knew that. But what we also had assumed were actually kids were playing in a bunch of other tools, but that wasn't what we saw. A few kids had YouTube, a few kids were on Twitter, but very few other social tools that the students had. And what was more important than that, what we found was that these students, although they were using the tools, they had never contemplated how to move from having Facebook to using Facebook to create a community or to build an audience or to exert influence. And that was huge, that they had seen these tools as a way just to connect and make friends, but they never thought of how they could use those social tools to build audience and create influence. They never thought about how this interconnectedness that there is in that social media world. They lived in Facebook like they lived in the real world of friends, but never lived in the social media as a way that they could actually have this huge influence over such a larger crowd than even just their core group. Students may have been native to technology, but they had no idea on how to build community. So what we did was we go, okay, we are on Facebook, it's 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, we want you to get 1,000 followers. And so we know that schools don't allow Facebook. We either ban it or we block it, or we at least say kids aren't on it. So this is 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, we asked them to get 1,000 followers. Within hours, during a school day, they had got their 1,000 followers. And what they came away from that very first day was realizing that using Facebook and combining it with Twitter and with their blog was this megaphone to the world. They could have this great influence by finding ways to connect those social media tools together and pushing those out to an audience. What we also found that first day and throughout the entire project was something reinforced, that although we can talk about online learning and living digitally, why the project worked was we built community face-to-face first and then extended that into the digital world. And I think this just reinforces, as we look at, especially in our secondary system, what secondary learning looks like. You build community face-to-face, and then you extend that out. And that's what we saw in working with these students. As we began the project and we began reporting, this was like the aha moment. Mobile technology was a game changer. Those students who had mobile devices had a huge advantage. They could publish in real time. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're taking photos, they're publishing their blogs in the moment. And yes, it was a reporting program, so there was something inherent in that, in being able to do just in time, but it was more than that. Those students who had the mobile devices with them could collaborate in real time in that real world. And those students who had to go and wait for wireless internet access and take their laptop and plug in were at a disadvantage. A huge lesson, I think, moving forward in the power and the value of that mobile technology is going to have in our schools. What we also saw was, as I said, the best writing was key, and that writing still mattered. And photos were great, but those students who were able to build the community in their blogs were those that included video. I think this is also something that's a really important lesson for our schools, is thinking about how we're going to include video in everything that we do. This is just a growing area of importance, and that everything we do as teachers and what we ask our students to produce is that we think about how we're going to engage them with video. What they loved about the whole blog experience was not this competition of, I wonder if mine's better than yours, but this notion of yours helps make mine better. At the end of it, they commented on two things in particular about why they felt they were better writers. One, they published to the world. They had been used to publishing for a teacher. When they published for the world, they felt that made their work better. And the second one was they got to see other students' work, and the other students' work helped make their work better. They just loved this notion of being able to publish to a public audience. The better they wrote, the more interesting the topic, the larger the audience. It actually became a really simple formula. And at the end, it was frustrating for them going back to school, because they had become used to the freedom of this experience. And they went back to blocked-in schedules. And they'd seen what was possible with real-world learning. And they had finally had a taste. And they've kind of had become accustomed to this. School was what it was. And now they saw learning actually could look like something different. And it was really a challenge for them going back. So mobile technology can change learning. Good writing still matters. Using social media needs to be taught and not assumed. And networks are essential. And the real world is addictive. And once kids get a taste of it, they're not going to want to go back. The real world learning was also really profound for all of us adults who were involved in the project too. I've actually never been part of something that was so exhilarating and exciting working with these students. The idea of building networks was new to students, but what we found was you actually just let them go, and they had networks that they could build. When you go, well, who are your parents? Who are your parents' friends? Who are your friends? Who are your friends' friends? Who are your friends' friends' parents? They had this network of people that they could use, they could work with. And so often we want to jump in and go, you should talk to this person or this person or this person. Actually, you let them go a little bit, and you give them some time and some space, and they'll find ways of building networks. It was hard. As a teacher, I think sometimes we say that technology is going to make teaching easier. It's not. It's going to make it different. It looked very different than what I was used to. It was sometimes as a large group, sometimes as a small group, sometimes one-on-one. It was very different, but it was the most difficult and tiring experience of my life. And it was daytime, it was nighttime, it wasn't blocked out in the schedule, it wasn't in 40-minute or 80-minute blocks. Sometimes it was during the day, sometimes it was night, sometimes it was really casual, and sometimes it was intense. It was teaching. It just felt like being in the flow. It didn't feel like school, but what was going on felt like learning for the kids and for me. I'm reminded of the recent TEDxUBC by Sugata Mitra. Talked about this network of grannies out there waiting to help us. Because what I saw was every person we asked to help us, every adult who the kids approached, couldn't wait to be of assistance. And yes, it was the Olympics. And so everybody wanted to be involved in the Olympics, but it was way deeper than that. Every community member who we asked to engage with us was there and was thrilled to be asked and looked forward to being involved. And this is an untapped resource for all of us in the school system. We engage a very small percentage of our kids, largely through work experience and career programs. But there is this huge group of people out there in every profession that are just waiting to be asked to help engage kids in real-world learning. It was the greatest teaching experience of my life. I saw what I wanted for my kids, what I want for all kids. Real world learning supported by technology, but it was not about the technology at all. The technology was just supporting what was going on. It was the world that we often talk about of the what could be, or what should be, or maybe in the future might be, actually can be, and it can be that now. So I'm left with a couple other notions at the very end of the project. One, we need to rethink the role of teacher. The role of teacher as being the one who delivers the content, to that who mentors and works side by side with the students. We need to listen to the students and hear from them the way they want to learn and how they want to learn and what they want to learn, and include that student voice. And we need to find ways to engage in these real-world learning opportunities. To finish where I started, these are exciting times, I think, right now in our province. And these are conversations that aren't defined by borders of our province. They're actually conversations that are being had, locally and globally as we rethink schooling and learning. And it's not something that we have to look out that we could do or should do or might do in the future. There are real opportunities for us to do that now. Students Live gave me that taste of real world. And like those students who came back and go, oh, I've seen what's possible, and now I'm here and I go, I want more than this. I think all of us involved in this project felt that way. And so we're excited to help take ideas like this and make them happen in all our schools, for all our kids, both locally and globally. Thanks, everyone.